Mercenaries in medieval Europe. How much did they cost? Greetings, Your Majesty. I am your loyal advisor, Qingbai. I hear your enemies are on the run. As we press our advantage, I suggest temporarily expanding our army to seize the foreign lands our enemy has lost. To do this, you'll need to hire mercenaries quickly. I have compiled the going rates for mercenaries of this era for your consideration. If you find this information valuable, please approve of my work and grant me gold florins as payment. When it comes to mercenaries, few have more expertise than the Italians. These fabulously wealthy merchants relied on mercenaries for most of their armed forces. The Republic of Florence is a prime example. Florence's temporary government, the Balca, kept detailed financial records for certain years. According to their records from 1349 to 1350, we can find a detailed list of mercenary payments, a price list. The monetary units listed are piccoli and soldo. It should be noted, at the time, Florence primarily used the gold florin and the silver denari and other currencies like the grossi and quattrini. Here, the soldo was mainly used as a unit of account. In terms of conversion, 1 lira equaled 20 soldo, which equaled to 140 denarii. This is similar to the English system of pounds, shillings, and pence. In Florence during this era, the value of the gold florin was quite stable, making it more popular in circulation. In 1349 and 1350, 1 gold florin was worth about 60 for soldo. But before we get to the salaries, it's important to know that in most parts of the medieval world, currency values and prices fluctuated greatly. To give you a clear idea of a mercenary's purchasing power around 1350, let's first look at the prices of some basic goods. 1 bushel of wheat cost 23.75 soldo. A 40.7-liter barrel of wine cost 26.9 soldo. The price of 1 pound of iron was 1 soldo and 2 denarii, while 1 pound of steel was 2 soldo and 7 denarii. 1,000 nails cost between 342 and 432 soldo. Alright, next, I will show you the Florentine mercenaries' monthly salaries for 1349 to 1350. Remember, this is monthly pay. All units are in soldo. In 1350, the pay for many infantrymen increased. The cavalry's pay, however, did not change. The highest paid were the German mercenary cavalry captains. Their monthly salary was 1,920 soldo. They typically led a small detachment of 13 to 20 cavalrymen. In 1350, their unit expanded to 20 to 25 men, but their salary remained the same. Note, this amount was his personal salary, not for the whole detachment. The mercenary cavalrymen under him earned 520 to soldo a month. Next were the leaders of Italian mercenary detachments with about 15 horsemen. The cavalry captains, their monthly salary was 800. In 1350, their unit expanded to 20 men. Their pay did not change. The Italian mercenary cavalrymen under these captains had a monthly salary of 400, exactly half of their captains. If an Italian captain held the title of knight, they could receive an additional 25% in pay. That is, a monthly salary of 1,000. The German captains did not have this bonus, but that still didn't stop. The Florentine officials from they led had a monthly salary of 207, which rose to 256 in 1350, about half of their captain's pay. Next, the captains of 20 to 25-man shield-bearer detachments. In 1349, their monthly salary was 200. In 1350, this rose to 340. However, the squads they commanded also expanded to a maximum of 31 men. The shield-bearers under them earned 120 a month. This rose to 170 in 1350, also about half of their captain's salary. Additionally, apprentice shield-bearers in those 2 years earned 100 and 170 respectively. They were the lowest paid among these mercenaries. Then, the crossbowmen captains from Bibina and Modena. Their income was lower than those mentioned before. They commanded small units of 10 to 18 men. Their monthly salary was 202, rising to 230 in 1350. For the larger units of 20 to 25 men expanded in 1350. The captain's monthly salary rose even higher to 280. The crossbowmen under their command earned a monthly salary of 138, which rose to 180 in 1350. Once you have confirmed their combat effectiveness, I trust you will find their pay to be justified. In 1350, the lowest paid mercenary, the apprentice shield-bearer, earned 170 soldo per month. That could buy 7.2 bushels of wheat, or 257 liters of wine. As a rough estimate, an adult man needed about 1 bushel of wheat per month, so a shield-bearer could easily support his family, likely with money to spare. You can also see that cavalry pay was significantly higher than infantry. The highest-paid German cavalry captain earned over 10 times the salary of the lowest-level apprentice shield-bearer. This is perfectly logical, but in 1350, infantrymen received a general pay raise, while the cavalry did not. One theory is that this was due to a shortage of infantrymen. The Black Death from 1346 to 1350 caused the population in Italy, especially in cities, to drop sharply. This led to a clear decline in infantry recruits. In July 1349, Florence passed a decree to increase infantry wages specifically due to this shortage. However, in Italy, where mercenaries were everywhere, the supply of mercenary cavalry was perhaps more stable. Many mercenary cavalrymen came from outside of Italy. The plague had drastically reduced their income from land, forcing them to live as mercenaries. Of course, some sources claim that certain administrative officials suggested that the supply of mercenary cavalry was also tight. So then, the infantry's pay raise was likely for another reason. In 1349, they were paid in gold coins, but the next year, the city switched to the less popular silver coins for payments, so the amount was increased to compensate. In summary, the price of mercenaries, like any commodity, is affected by market supply and demand and by currency value fluctuations. If, with my guidance, you always keep an eye on market trends, you will have a good chance to recruit the best mercenaries for the lowest price. Next, let's look at the income of non-combat professions for comparison. Were the mercenaries paid well? In 1350, the governor of Florence had a monthly salary of 4,440 for soldo. A municipal office accountant, a public doctor, and a spy all had a monthly salary of 200 soldo. A town crier's monthly salary was 120 to soldo. A jailer, 100 soldo. A government-employed cook, 80 soldo. The people listed above were Florentine government employees. You could consider them public officials. As for ordinary professions, a construction worker's monthly salary was 300 soldo, while a common stonemason earned about 360 soldo, more than many common soldiers. We can see that in Florence during this era, a skilled worker's income was no less than a low-ranking soldier's. However, these craftsmen were paid based on the actual number of days they worked, so their income may not have been as stable as a soldier's. For Florentine mercenaries, contracts usually lasted for 4 to 6 months. Their salaries would be paid as a lump sum to the mercenary captain. Some more recent studies have overturned the old view. They suggest that captains were required to pay according to the standards set by Florentine officials, not just however they saw fit. I believe this distribution model is better for maintaining stability in the army. I strongly advise you to also standardize the mercenaries' salaries to prevent captains from embezzling funds and destroying morale. You may be very concerned about how a republic like Florence, which relied almost completely on mercenaries, could afford its military expenditures. Here, I can show you some of the data from May to June of 1349. While Florence was in a state of war, they paid a total of 75,989 lira to mercenaries and their commanders. This was 79.59% of their total expenditure. By the end of the war in October, this expenditure fell to 47,948 lira, making up 71.3% of the total budget. Although the total amount decreased, the proportion of military spending was still very high. If we convert this using the purchasing power of wheat, around the year 1350, the price of a bushel of wheat in England was about 8 pence. Therefore, 2 months of military spending during the war, converted to English currency, would be about 2,133 English pounds. In 1349, the Kingdom of England's revenue was about 133,000 pounds. If military funds were spent at this rate for a full year, the city-state of Florence alone, with its annual spending on mercenaries, would nearly reach an amount equal to 9.6% of the total revenue of the Kingdom of England at the time. We can also look at the going rates for mercenaries in other regions. In England during the same period, a hired knight banneray's monthly salary was 120 shillings. A hired knight's was 60 shillings. A hired man-at-arms or squire was 30 shillings. Comparing their purchasing power in wheat, the German mercenary captain's monthly salary in Florence could buy 80.8 for bushels of wheat. Meanwhile, an English hired knight banneray's monthly salary could buy 180 bushels, while a regular knight could buy 90 bushels. In conclusion, for a powerful and wealthy monarch of a great kingdom like yourself, temporarily hiring a mercenary force of about 5,000 men to raid enemy territory is not too great of a burden. I have run the numbers for you. If you were to recruit an army of 2,000 German mercenary cavalry, 1,000 mercenary crossbowmen, and 2,000 mercenary shield bearers for a 4-month contract, the total cost would be about 141,820 for lira. Comparing this number, we can also see that in May and June of 1349, the army hired by Florence was also about 5,000 men strong. As far as I know, the king of your enemy nation is planning to raise a mercenary army to resist your conquest. This will be a time-consuming process. If you can hire an army swiftly, you will surely act before the enemy can reorganize his forces, seize his foreign territories, and cut off his revenue. I wish you a swift victory. I shall see you at the celebration banquet.